I'll never forget my stepmother's smug little smile across that lawyer's table. After 15 years of trying to systematically erase me from my father's life, she really truly thought she had me beat. She thought she'd won. But what she had no idea about was that my dad was about to get the last laugh, even from beyond the grave. And to really understand how we got to that moment, you gotta know about the 15 years that came before it. So, to really get why this moment in the lawyer's office was so incredibly intense, you have to understand how we all got there. See, this wasn't just about some will. This was about 15 years of a quiet, brutal war. My mom, Laura, passed away when I was 17, and it shattered our worlds. About a year later, Dad married Veronica. And at first, I was happy for him. But almost right away, she started this slow, methodical campaign to drive a wedge between us, turning the home I grew up in into a place I barely even recognized. The way she could manipulate people, it was honestly a work of art. In public, she'd say things like, "Oh, she is like the daughter I never had," while at the same time digging her fingers into my arm as a warning. She perfected that backhanded compliment, always making sure I knew my place while playing the part of the perfect doting wife for my dad. Then I was halfway across the world in Tokyo for work when I got the call. The one in the middle of the night that just shatters your world. My father was gone. A massive heart attack. No chance to even say goodbye. The funeral was a total production. Veronica put on this whole tearful performance about their perfect marriage for hundreds of business associates Dad barely even knew. And you know what? She never even mentioned my name in her eulogy. I felt like a stranger at my own father's service. After the service, I asked if I could have his old fishing gear, just something small to remember our trips by. She looked at me with this fake pity in her voice and told me she'd already donated all that junk. She was erasing him from the world just like she tried to erase me from his life. Just when I thought I was going to completely break down, Dad's oldest friend, Thomas, he slips me an envelope. Inside was a letter from my father, written just 6 months earlier. And with those words, everything changed. What fight was he talking about? Who was Daniel? A week later, I walked into that lawyer's office, clutching that letter like it was a lifeline. Veronica was there with her entire family, this little entourage, like they were ready for a coronation. I had absolutely no idea what was coming, but I just held on to Dad's words. Don't give up the fight. Before Daniel, the lawyer, could even get a word out, Veronica stood up and made this big announcement. She presented a document, an amendment to the will, and declared that Dad had been so hurt by my abandonment that he'd cut me out. Completely. For a split second, my whole world it stopped. My heart was pounding out of my chest. Could the man who wrote that beautiful letter really have betrayed me like this? Was it all just a lie? I looked over at the lawyer, just desperately searching for some kind of sign. I looked at Daniel, and I saw his mouth twitch. He tried to hold it back. He really did, but he couldn't. He just burst out laughing. And I don't mean a little chuckle. I mean a full, startling laugh that just echoed through that silent conference room. That laugh, that was the sound of her entire plan just going up in smoke. Daniel called her forgery the most amateur job he'd seen in 40 years. The date on it was from a day Dad was heavily sedated in the hospital. The signature was a terrible copy, the notary's license was expired, and it even listed properties Dad hadn't owned in years. So, with Veronica's lie totally exposed and her face drained of all color, Daniel picked up another, much thicker document. It was time to read the actual will, and we were all about to learn how my dad had been fighting for me all along. The very first thing I heard was a number. The lawyer announced that my father, Harold James Ramirez, had left 70% of his entire estate to me, his daughter. But it wasn't just about the money, He left me the controlling interest in his company, our family home, everything that mattered. Veronica was left with just 30% and none of the pieces of our family's real legacy. But the real bombshell, the part that left everyone in that room speechless, was a statement from my father, read aloud by the lawyer. In his own words, he explained that he knew exactly what Veronica had been doing the entire time. My father wasn't just suspicious. He was strategic. For 2 years, he had been quietly gathering this mountain of evidence. He recorded her plotting with her lawyer, he saved emails she tried to hide from him, and he even hired a private investigator who uncovered her lies and her affair. She was completely cornered. The evidence was overwhelming, and she was facing potential criminal charges. So I offered her a simple deal. Take the 30% Dad left you and disappear forever. Or I would make sure the whole world knew exactly who she really was. She took the deal. I never saw her again. And while the financial inheritance was significant, I soon discovered that the real inheritance my father left me wasn't something you could ever put in a bank account. In his study, I found a locked box. Inside were dozens of letters he had written to me over the 15 years of his marriage to Veronica. Letters he had never sent. They proved that despite the silence she created, he never, ever stopped thinking of me. His final, incredible gift, it wasn't the company or the house. It was the truth. It was the knowledge that our love was real, that it was worth fighting for, and that he had been protecting me the entire time, even when I had no idea.
I use my inheritance to start a foundation in my parents' names, Harold and Laura. It funds grief counseling, provides scholarships for kids who've lost a parent, and supports heart disease research. It's my way of turning all that pain and scheming into something positive and lasting.
This whole ordeal taught me that love sometimes works in ways we can't see. It can be quiet, patient, and strategic, fighting battles for us when we don't even know we're at war. It makes you wonder, what unseen battles are being fought for you right now?